Hi class, this is Miss Juliana, part 2 of 17.2. We were just getting to the examples near the bottom of the page, so we will start there. You'll see the first one, example 1, states that we are to list all congruent angles and write a proportion that relates the corresponding sides. So with that, you have the two triangles here, JKL and PNM, and those are similar triangles. And the problem is with this one is we don't have any idea of which angles are congruent to which angles. So we're just going to write them in. It looks to me like J and P are congruent, so we'll make them congruent. And that L and N are congruent, so we'll make them congruent. And K and M are congruent, so we'll make them congruent. Now, you won't have to do that normally. That just happened to be a misprint on this particular example, being that we don't know which angles are congruent to which. So, but now we do. We just said which ones are. All right, so angle J and P are the congruent angles. So angle J is congruent to angle P. All right, and we're going to say they're congruent because they are. The sides aren't, but the angles are. So I'm going to state them in their proper form with the symbol of congruency between the two angles. All right, and then let's see, angle L and angle N. So angle L, is congruent to angle N. I'm going to just start over because I just did a terrible job on writing any of those. So we'll start again. So angle J is congruent to angle N, and angle L is congruent to angle N, which is what I meant to say here is P. So angle P and J have the same single arc, and L and N have the same double arc. And then the third angles are angle K, which will be congruent to angle M. All right, so those are the three angles that are congruent. And then the sides that are proportional. So this is where we have to really make sure that we have our angles marked. We know which ones are the congruent ones because we have to state sides in the same order as the angles that are congruent. So if I say side JL, I would say JL over PN, side PN. So that ratio, because this side and this side are the proportional sides. So that's going to make our scale factor because they're the same sides that correspond to the congruent angles 1 to 2, 1 to 2. So JL over PN is equal to, and then we are going to go 2 to 3 next, and we get to pick whatever we want, but 2 to 3, and we're making this triangle first and this one second, so that's important. So KL, the side KL that goes from 3 to 2, we're going to go 3 to 2 again on the other triangle, so MN. So that ratio will have the same scale factor as our third side, and that's going to be 1 to 3. So JK, one arc is J, 3 arcs is K, and then PM. All right, so those are going to be our proportional sides, and that's how we would write the proportional sides. In sides, the only things that are equal is the scale factors for each. Well, they're the same scale factor, but we have to state the scale factor in accordance to congruent angles or proportional sides. So JL over PN is going to equal, I'm going to give it a different color, KL is this side, to MN, which is that side, and then JK, which is this side, over 1 to 3 PM, this side. All right, so those sides have to be stated as scale factors or the ratio of two sides in order for us to have anything that's equal because the scale factors will be equal. All right, pretty easy. Okay, the other thing you're going to be asked to do on your homework is find the value of x given certain sides of a triangle and certain corresponding proportional sides of the other triangle. So what you must do is come up with which sides are corresponding to which sides, and you have to state which triangle is first because that triangle has to be first in all ratios. You can't go this side to this side and then this side to that side. You can't go, you have to use the same triangle on the top and the same triangle on the bottom every single time. So I like to, once again, mark which sides are proportional. And to do that, I like to use just colors because colors help me see. And these are not congruent, so we can't just use a dash with congruent sides. Now, GA or AG, okay, are the first two angles of the similarity statement, and so are KX. So KX, those two are proportional sides. So that to that is equal to, and then the other sides that are proportional, we have GM, which is the last two angles of the first triangle, and then XD are the last two angles of the second triangle. So that marks our sides for us very easily, and we can see which sides are corresponding, and that will help us come up with our proportion like we did in 7-1, the first assignment. It was 7-1, and we're going to set up the same proportion and solve for x just like we did there. So if I start with this first triangle, and make sure you label 1 and 2 so that you know which one to start with. 32. Okay, 32 corresponds to x over plus 3, sorry, x plus 3. So 32 over x plus 3 will be equal to, and then we have 36 over x plus 6. Okay? So 32 over x plus 3 is equal to 36 over x plus 6. Now, if we don't set that up correctly, we're not going to get the right answer for x. And also, it's important to note that you can start with this triangle and have x plus 3 over 32 equals x plus 6 over 36. That's all right, too. You could have this one first, 36 over x plus 6 equals 32 over x plus 3. There are a myriad of ways to set this up in different ways and still get the correct answer. You just have to make sure that this, whatever triangle you start with, you always start with for the top, and you make sure that you get the corresponding sides right. But that's all you have to do. So you'll have 32 times x plus 6. Remember that we put parentheses around these so that we make sure that we appropriately multiply through or distribute our numbers. And that's going to be equal to 36 times x plus 3. Right? So I'm going to probably want a calculator for this. Most likely, if I have 32x plus 6 times 32 is 192 is equal to 36x plus 36 times 3 is 108. And then you would subtract, and I would probably subtract 36x first. I like to subtract the x off and get down to an equation with only one x. This makes me feel better. So negative 4x plus 192 is 108, and then subtract 192. Negative 4x is equal to 108 minus 192 is negative 84, and if you divide by 4, negative 4, that's not going to let me write underneath that, but you must divide by negative 4, and that makes 21 for both the negatives, so you'll have a positive answer. So x is 21. All right. So those are the type of problems that you'll get. I still have a couple of minutes on this, so would like to probably do, maybe help you do a couple on the homework in my remaining time. The first one I wanted to look at because it has overlapping, what we call overlapping triangles that are similar. So your first triangle is this one right here. Oops, it's really hard to write on this straight. Okay, so that's your first triangle. And then your second triangle I'll do in red is this one right here. Okay. And with overlapping triangles, you're going to note that, sometimes it helps if you just rewrite them. So, and label, make sure you label. So that one's the smaller of the two. It's RST, triangle RST. And then the bigger of the two is YXZ. All right, sometimes you can draw it. You note that this angle is the same for both. That should be a YRS. And then these two angles are the corresponding angles, and they're actually the same angle. It would be a reflexive angle. And then these two angles are the same. So that means R and X are the same measure. And then S and Z are the same measure. S and Z are the same measure. So if it helps you, rewrite them and label them appropriately, and then use your rewritten drawings to line up all of the congruent angles and the proportional sides. So angle Y is congruent to angle Y. They're this angle right here, and then R and X. Angle R is congruent to angle X, and you can look at it here or here, either one. If you look at R and X over here, it doesn't like this makes a little dot, but R and X, and then R and X, and the last one are S and Z. So angle S is congruent to angle Z, is the third angle. And then for sides, that's when I like to look at these. That's when I like to look at the separate ones. So RY, side RY, so I went 2 to 1, is congruent to, or not congruent to, but proportional with XY. Okay, and that ratio is going to equal YS, which is 1/3 to YZ, which is equal to RS, which is 2 to 3 arcs, so XZ, 2 to 3 arcs. Right, so that's an example of a type of problem that you might get when you're trying to show congruent angles and proportional sides. And then let me pick one to help you with on your homework, where you have to find a side measure. These are scale factors. So sometimes you just have to, like on a rectangle, we know that these two sides are the same and these two sides are the same, and vice versa at 8 and 16. So you have two sides. Now it's easy to come up with the corresponding sides because you know one's smaller and one's bigger. So 2 to 4, 2 and 4 are going to go to 8 and 16. So 2 smaller between 2 and 4, and 8 smaller between 8 and 16. So you would do 2 over 8. So 2 and 8 would be the corresponding sides, which is 1/4. So be careful with that. If you're not given any markings at all whatsoever, then it's sometimes easier to find it just by looking at small and big. Sometimes you don't know on triangles the angles either, but you know the side measures. So you can pick out the smallest side and the smallest side, and you know those two have to be the corresponding sides. So it would be 4 to 10, which is 2/5. Okay, so those are little hints on those. And then I have 1 minute to help you find, do another type of problem. So find the perimeter of figure A. So if you know the scale factor of figure A to B, so this is first and this is second, is 7 to 2. Okay, so 7 to 2 will equal whatever the perimeter is of A to the perimeter of B. And the perimeter of B is 12 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5. So I think that's 35. 12 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5 is 35. All right, so you can set that up that way. That means you're able to cross multiply. So 2p is 7 times 35, 245, and then divide by 2. P is going to equal, it's going to be a decimal, isn't it? But just by halves, so it's not that big of a deal. 122.5. All right. So good luck with the rest of that homework, and have a great time doing that. This concludes 7.1's lessons. All right, let me figure out how to